Hey everyone, welcome to Recap Blitz. In a village filled with the silence of war, the wind carries only dust and broken memories. In one small house on the edge of the village, a single lamp burns late into the night. Its thin light falls on a woman who sits beside her husband's bed. Around her, the walls are plain and the air smells of old linen and fear. Outside, shells fall without warning. Inside, there is only quiet and waiting. Each morning before dawn, she rises and washes his face. He lies still, his neck heavy where a bullet entered. The wound healed on the outside, but inside he is trapped in a world of silence. Doctors cannot explain why his body will not move or why he cannot speak. They once said he might wake in 12 weeks, but 16 weeks have passed. Every day she combs his hair, adjusts his pillow, and wipes his lips. Every night she whispers her hopes into his ear, as if her voice alone could bring him back. She prays at dawn and again at dusk. She closes her eyes and lifts her hands to the sky. Allah, grant me a miracle, she begs. Let him open his eyes. Let him speak my name. Her prayers rise like smoke. Sometimes she feels a faint stir in his chest, and her heart leaps. Other times she sits in silence, broken only by the slow drip of the four. Around her, the war goes on. She has no choice but to believe in a future where her husband walks again. Her two little daughters crowd around her dress each morning. Their bellies are empty. They tug at her skirt, begging for breakfast. She gives them water and a small piece of bread, but it is never enough. At night, their cries fill the house. She hums a lullaby she learned as a child, rocking them gently. If they can sleep, they will not feel the gnawing in their stomachs. She feels guilty for their hunger, but every coin she has goes to his medicine and bandages. One day she leaves the house with a small bag and her last coins. She must buy saline solution for his four. The pharmacy lies 2 streets away, near the market stalls that sell tea and rice. She hopes the pharmacist will take mercy on her. But when she asks for the solution, he shakes his head. She owes him money from before. He will not let her buy a drop until she pays her debt. Her throat tightens. She bows her head and leaves without a word. Back home, she opens the empty bag. She feels a wild panic in her chest. He must have his saline. He must not grow weaker. She mixes sugar in a jug of water and brings it to his lips. He stirs slightly at the cold sweetness, as if he remembers what it is to drink. She holds his hand and whispers, "Forgive me, my love. I have no better gift." Then she wraps him in his blanket and steps outside, trembling. Desperate, she heads to her aunt's house on the far side of the village. Her aunt once helped her in times of need. The path winds past broken wells and overturned carts. She carries hope in her heart. But when she knocks, no one answers. The door is locked. A neighbor tells her that her aunt moved away months ago and left no address. Her heart sinks. She stands in the dusty road, her shoes coated in ash, and prays again. Then she turns back toward the small house that holds all her life. Inside, she finds herself talking to her husband as if he might reply. She tells him about his shooting. She recalls how he stood up for his mother when someone insulted her name at the market. His anger flared, and a gunman took aim. Now he lies silent and still. She blames his brother and his mother for leaving him alone to wander the streets in that moment. She blames herself for not holding him close enough. The next morning, the 2 girls slip into their father's room. They are bored and restless. They see the 4 line trailing from his arm. With childish curiosity, they pull it free. A small rush of saline spills onto the floor. Alarmed, the mother rushes in just as the line loosens. She gathers the girls in her arms, tears in her eyes. "Never touch his medicine," she urges. It keeps him alive. They huddle in her arms, frightened by her anger and sorrow. That afternoon, a group of women from the mosque come to see her. They carry prayer beads and call her to join them in worship. She shakes her head. She cannot enter the mosque now. She is on her period. In her family, the old custom says a woman must stay away from prayer during those days. Even her grandmother held that rule. She bows her head and watches them leave, their voices drifting down the street like music she cannot reach. A few days later, the low thrum of an airplane turns into a roar overhead. An airstrike hits the eastern fields. Rocks shatter windows. Everyone runs into the streets with their children. People shout and cover their heads. She grips her daughters and presses against a broken wall, listening to the sky fall. When the noise dies, she breathes. She leads her daughters home, her heart pounding. The world outside has grown more dangerous while he lies helpless. She unlocks the front door with trembling fingers. Inside, soldiers wait. They wear dusty uniforms and carry rifles over their shoulders. They push past her, scanning every corner. One kneels by her husband's bed and checks his pulse. He sees the prayer beads near the force stand. He is Muslim, the soldier says. They spare his life, but another soldier snatches the man's wedding ring and his watch. They file out without a word, leaving her clutching his empty bed. In the backyard, she finds a sight she cannot bear. 3 bodies lie in the dirt, 2 men and a woman. The toil of war has come home. One body is her mother's. She falls to her knees, screaming a name into the silent air. Her daughters hide their faces in her dress. She wants to run, to fight, to scream, but she only weeps. When she finally stands, she is an empty shell. The world has taken everything. The next day, she gathers her daughters and steps out into the dusty road again. She heads to the old house where her aunt once lived, even though it is empty and dark. She hopes for shelter, a kind word, anything. A stranger answers the door. Her eyes are hard. "We cannot help you," she says. The woman collapses on the steps, weeping. The stranger hesitates, then scribbles an address on a scrap of paper. "Go there," she tells the woman. "Maybe your aunt is still alive." At the new address, she finds a faded door with a small brass plate. Inside lies her aunt, older and bent, her face lined with grief. They sit together on low chairs, and the aunt takes her hands. She tells a story the woman never heard. Years ago, the aunt killed her own father. He beat his wife and daughters. One night, he struck the aunt so hard she feared for her mother's life. In the darkness, she found a knife and defended her family. In the morning, she was an outcast. Her family drove her away. They said she had no honor. The woman listens, stunned. The aunt's tears fall onto her hands. "You are not alone," she whispers. "We women carry wounds no one sees." The proverb her aunt repeats haunts her. A patient stone holds every grief until it breaks. She realizes that her husband is her stone. She has poured out all her sorrow into his silent form. She returns home at dusk and bathes him gently. His skin is cold, but she warms him with water and soft cloths. After 10 years of marriage, she leans over and kisses him on the forehead. He does not move, but her lips brush his skin and her heart trembles. For a moment, she feels peace. Night falls. She sits by his bed and tells him her deepest memories. She speaks of the day she married him with only his photograph at her side, because he was still fighting at the front. She recalls the months she spent alone in his family's home, where his brothers watched her every move. They said she might steal the land or waste their brother's inheritance. She was not allowed to close the bathroom door. They stood just outside and jeered at her. She lived in fear and shame. She does not know why she tells him all this. Perhaps because he cannot interrupt or judge. She pours out every wound. Her father's gambling on his fighting quails, the day he lost her older sister in a bet, and how she set the birds free to save her sister from marriage. She tells him of the hunger, the loneliness, and the constant ache in her heart. When she finishes, she sits back and sighs. For the first time, she feels heard. Days pass in this rhythm. She cares for him and speaks her truth. The women from the mosque return, but she again refuses to join their prayers. She says her body is unclean. Outside, the war grows closer. She fears the soldiers will come again. One morning, she finds a small storeroom behind a torn curtain and hides her husband inside. She pulls the fabric tight so no light can show. That afternoon, the soldiers burst in. They thrust her against the wall and demand to know where her husband is. She shudders and forces a lie. "He is dead. I brought him home to prepare his grave. This house is my work." They laugh, disgusted. One spits in her face before they leave. She wipes her mouth and presses her daughters close. Their futures seem darker than ever. That night, she cannot sleep. She sits on the floor beside her hidden husband and begins to speak of her childhood. She tells him about her father's cruel favoring of birds over his own children. She recalls the day he pitted the birds in a fight and then gambled away her sister. She speaks of how she ran from the house and never felt safe again. The words pour out like blood from a wound. At dawn, she hears soft footsteps outside. Expecting soldiers, she tenses. A young man in uniform appears instead. He carries a small bundle of money. He throws it on the table and stares at her with cold eyes. Then he forces himself on her, treating her as if she has no choice. She trembles and lets him use her, knowing that resistance could mean death. When he leaves, she gathers the bills and counts them in the dim light. With the money, she buys food for her daughters and more saline for her husband's 4. She hides the rest. That night, the young soldier returns. He pushes more bills into her hand, then looks at her face. "You are worth more," he says in a low voice before he leaves. She stares after him, confused by his cruelty and his gifts. She sits beside her husband and speaks his name. "I am sorry," she whispers. "I did what I had to do." Her voice cracks as she confesses that she feels the young soldier is stronger, kinder, more alive than her husband. She weeps and prays for mercy. Then she opens the Quran and reads until her eyes grow heavy. She asks Allah to forgive her words and her deeds. The next day, she notices the front door has been mended. The broken wood is fixed, the lock smooth again. She knows the soldier did it for her. Later, he comes again and asks her to go with him. They walk to a small grove outside the village. He takes off his shirt. She sees scars on his chest, old burns shaped like rings. She imagines the pain he endured. He watches her quietly. She does not speak. Weeks pass. She visits her aunt and tells her everything about the soldier. Her aunt listens without shock. "You survive," she says softly. On her way home, the woman finds a bag of fresh fruit at her door. A simple silver necklace lies on top. No note is attached. She holds the necklace in her hand and feels a strange flutter in her chest, something like hope. That evening, she returns to her husband's side. She tells him one last secret. She never bore him a son. They tried for years, but she never carried his child. Her mother-in-law threatened to cast her out if she did not give her son an heir. So she turned to another man and became pregnant. Out of fear and shame, she married him anyway. Their 2 daughters are not her husband's by blood. Each time she held them, she felt the weight of her secret. She watches her husband's face for a sign. Then, suddenly, he opens his eyes. Rage floods his gaze. He grabs at her throat, strangling her with unexpected strength. She gasps for air. In the struggle, she finds a kitchen knife. Her hand shakes as she raises it. He snarls at her, but she stabs him once, twice. Blood pours from his chest. He collapses to the floor. She stands above him, panting, her hands slick with red. Through the window, the young soldier sees the scene. He stops in the doorway and watches her. The moonlight falls on her face. She does not look like a murderer. She looks like a woman set free. Her mouth curves into a small, haunted smile. The war, the silence, the years of pain, all of it seems to have led to this moment. This is her story. In a land torn by war and ruled by harsh custom, she became both witness and judge of her own life. Her husband, once her protector, lay silent as her confidant. The soldier, once her oppressor, became the first person to mend her broken door. In the end, she shattered her own patience stone and claimed her freedom. Blood for blood, silence for speech, death for life. Hello everyone. Did you enjoy today's film? If you did, I recommend you watch the next movie on your screen. It is based on true events and has a similar tone. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel.
Subscribe. Join next time for another story that makes you think and feel. Until then, stay curious and stay safe.